Hello, sir.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. Thank you for talking with us today.
I thank you for having my call.
This is a segment we do during Pride called When'd You Come Out and How'd That Go For You? And you have a rather unique experience that happened to you. Tell us how it sort of came about.
Well, for me, I grew up in a heavily religious home. My background is Caribbean. My parents are from Jamaica. So they were very much anti-gay, like very much so, very vocal about it. My dad, told me all the time that if he found out any of his kids were gay, he'd kill them.
How does that make you feel as a kid growing up, like knowing that you're gay? Like you got to be scared in your own home.
Well, this is why I called, right? Because it's something I would never want on anybody. It's something that I'm in my 20s now, right? But when I was growing up, I took him very seriously, and it really warps sort of your perception of just being safe in your own home. We grow up seeing stuff about what love is and that parents, should love their kids above all else. And, when you hear that from your own parents, it really, it terrifies you and changes and warps your perception of everything that you know.
I bet.
Oh, yeah. So for me, every time Pride would come around, my dad would, you'd say stuff like, those gays need to be burned. And he'd just say really harsh and cold things. And, I would just be in my back of my mind thinking oh my God, what did I do?
Right.
So you think there was somewhere deep inside of him that knew about you and he was trying to discourage you or something?
Oh, 100%. Now for sure. That, I think that parents know instinctively about their children, because for me, I didn't come out. My mother outed me and my dad outed me on their own.
Okay, how exactly did that come about? Was your mom first, and then walk us through it?
Yeah, for sure. So my mom, for myself, I had braids in my hair, so I was getting my hair braided by my mom, and midway through the braid, she said to me, "If you were gay, would you tell me?" And everything, it was just silence, because I was caught off guard, and braiding hair takes hours. So I'm halfway through, so I'm I can't leave. If I say something, I'm oh, I'm screwed. I'm gonna have half finished hair. So I said, no, I wouldn't tell you. And she's like, well, why is that? And I said, because I know your religious beliefs. So she's like, are you? So I hummed and hawed for a bit, and then obviously my silence kind of outed me, and she's like, you are? And I said, yes. And she started crying and blaming herself and
Really?
Sort of asking why God had done this to her. It was,
no.
So not only are you sitting there probably hurt, super uncomfortable, but your hair is halfway did.
Yeah, exactly.
And now your mom is crying now. Yeah.
And she's crying, and she's blaming herself, and she goes through those steps of first denial and anger, and she went through all these steps.
Now, did she ask you to change? Did she think it was something that you could change?
Oh, of course. She believed it was a choice. She said it was very selfish of me.
Wow.
To do.
Unreal. So now let's move on to your dad. Your mom then told your dad?
No, my mom said that we should never tell my dad.
Okay.
So they'd been separated. So she said I should never tell him, and I completely agreed. My dad came over Boxing Day 8 years ago, and he made an unexpected visit. He brought my sisters over. I have 3 sisters, and he brought them over to exchange presents with me. And he asked where the washroom was. I at the time was living with I had my boyfriend, but I made him pretend like he was my roommate. Right? So
right.
he had gone to the bathroom, he went to the bathroom, but he sort of broke into my room, and I have a pride flag. So he saw the pride flag, and then he promptly left. No explanation, no nothing.
Oh,
so he told my sisters, he's like, let's go, right? And they left. So I was a little so soon kind of thing. And then I got an email shortly after saying that I was the worst thing to ever happen to him, that he always suspected it, that he'd hoped that I could resist the urges.
How do you get past something like that? Hearing something like that from your dad?
It's you know what? It's incredibly hard, and it's very difficult. Sometimes I spent years trying to sort of deprogram myself, because you lose your sense of worth and value a bit, because your parents are supposed to be people that you think will love you no matter what, or that's what we're told. And when they, my dad called me a mistake and, the worst thing to ever happen to him, and that he must be truly cursed by God. When you hear those kind of things, you kind of, it damages you.
So, where are you now in your relationship with each of your parents?
Well, my dad, I have not seen him since. He completely, that email was the last thing I've ever, or any form of communication that we ever had.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
It's one of those things that I felt like I needed to share this story, because for me, I went through a very hard time trying to cope with it, to understand it, because I thought you'd think that, or at least I thought that I'd moved past it and that it was nothing in water in the bridge, but it seeps into your life. It seeps into kind of like your perception of what love is, and it can harm your relationships and stuff like that. So if parents are listening or anything like that, they need to know these kind of the conversations and the things that it can damage your kid. My mom, we unfortunately we had to, she tried to sort of get through it or understand it, but we had a kind of a heart-to-heart, and she said that it's something she can't accept, and it's something that she finds is very selfish of me. She'd try to pretend that I was engaged. She'd ask me when am I getting a girlfriend. She tried to sort of pretend it wasn't a thing.
Now you've definitely had the worst case scenario happen to you for your coming out story with your family. How have you been able to get through it? Do you have a good support network through the gay and lesbian community?
Well, building a support network is definitely the fundamental way I got through it. My friends were my biggest comfort. When I came out to them, they were very supportive. I didn't lose any of my friends. They didn't think it was a big deal at all. And I got to be myself around them, because I'd have to try to hide all the time and suppress my sort of, because when I get excited, I become very rambunctious, and it kind of outs me. So I'd always be very quiet. So when I came out to my friends, I could be myself. So I built my support network around them, and then I reached out to other family members outside it, and I had an aunt who was very supportive, and she's my rock. She's been the person that she also doesn't get along with my parents, so it works out, because she's very liberal-minded, very free-spirited, so she is one of my biggest supporters.
What I found interesting talking to you through this entire conversation is you used the word selfish a lot, as in your parents said you were selfish, your dad said you were selfish. How could you be so selfish? Where I think in this instance, it's actually the complete opposite, whereby they're being selfish because they think that you should sort of live within the parameters of what they think is acceptable or not acceptable, which to me is true selfishness.
I completely agree. It's something I would try to reason with them. But when it comes to these things, reasoning, the logic doesn't sort of prevail, because it's their beliefs, and it's difficult to sort of change beliefs with logic.
Well, I think time heals, and perhaps time will change them as well.
Well, definitely, I hope, my mom, we don't speak, we broke up, we amicably broke away 2 Christmas ago. We realized that, because she would always sort of condemn me every time, saying that I'm going to hell, and every time with me. So I said that this is, I'm not going to live my life for her, I'm going to live my life for me, and this is, if there is a God or whatever, then that's between me and him, and not between, you and me. So I decided that it was best that we, not sort of, if she can't accept me, then it's not a healthy relationship for either of us.
I think just by having this conversation with us today, you're going to be helping out a lot of people, because we're hearing a lot of similar stories, especially where it comes from families that are quote-unquote religious. So,
and I hope so, and I hope that by sharing my story, I can somewhat help somebody else or who's going through those sort of anxiety in their minds of, what to do when their parents are super religious.
Drek, thank you so much for sharing that story with us today. You sound like you've really got a handle on where you are and who you are, and you feel great about yourself, which is the most important thing in the world. We can't thank you enough for sharing your story.
No, thank you. Definitely finding your self-worth and your value is incredibly important, right? And if you don't let someone else sort of dictate that for you.
Absolutely. And happy Pride, my friend.
Happy Pride, guys.
Take care.
Bye.
All right. Bye.